Welcome everyone to our webinar today. We are so very lucky to have Maddie here from Chicago joining us. Just a reminder, this will be on our YouTube and social media page. So if you would love to go back and rewatch it, you are more than welcome. I'm going to turn the time over to Maddie now.
All right, here I go. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me share my screen really quick so that we're all on the same page. And here we go. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to talk today about story sharing with deaf and hard of hearing children, which just means kind of reading with them. That's all that means. We just don't use the word reading aloud because not all of our kids are being read to aloud. Great. Well, here's me. My name is Maddie Hinkle. I have a BA in English Literature from Oberlin College and a master's in Deaf Studies Early Language Advocacy from Gallaudet University. I use she, her pronouns. After I graduated, I was actually during grad school, I was a DHH educator in a variety of roles, a substitute teacher, paraprofessional, etc., with a variety of age groups, most recently with preschool. That's one of my preschool students on Twin Day. And now I'm the Youth and Family Connections Coordinator with CHS. CHS stands for the Chicago Hearing Society, which is a misnomer because we are not for hearing people and we're not restricted to Chicago. It is a statewide program, nonprofit that supports deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing people here in Illinois, and I run their youth and family programs. I am hearing and I'm disabled. Okay, I'm going to talk kind of fast and go through this because this is usually like an hour-long presentation, so I want to make sure I can get to as much as we can. But okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we sit, how we read, how we reread, and then what we read. But we're going to do it in hyperspeed. So feel free to like slow down your video. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this all really in detail because I assume that if you're watching this, you know that reading with your child is a good idea. I do want to read this quote really quick. It says, "The age at which parents begin reading to their child is correlated with children's language development. Children who are read to from an early age tend to have higher scores on language measures later on." So basically just reading with your child is important, and it's correlated with their success in literacy and academic skills in the future. Which indicates that we should start reading with our kids as early as we can. It's a really good way to build up language skill. Language is a necessary foundation to have for literacy. I'm not going to go through all these specifics. Basically, reading is good. There's research to that, and if you want more details on any of that stuff, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I do want to touch on incidental language, which is down here. Incidental language is that stuff that is happening around. So the TV that's going on in the background, the radio, other people having a conversation in the kitchen that the child isn't actively involved in, that's incidental learning. And hearing kids are picking up a lot of language that way. They're getting new vocabulary and different sentence structure from the different things that they're overhearing. And our deaf and hard of hearing kids are missing some of that incidental learning. And so we have to be a little bit more intentional about providing them complex and diverse language so that they can develop in a similar structure. So reading is a really good way to do that because the language that you use while you read is different than the language that I would use, interacting, like, oh, what do you want for lunch? That kind of language is different than what you might find in a book. And so it's a good way to expand their development with different types of language, different words, that kind of stuff. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. So that's good. It also provides specifically something called decontextualized language. So what we were talking about where, you and I are talking about lunch. Like, what are we going to have for lunch? We could have this apple. We could have this sandwich. That's all stuff that is present. And books allow you to talk about decontextualized language. So things that are more abstract, things that aren't there in front of you, that really helps the child make those connections and develop those language skills, which again is a foundation necessary for later literacy. So it all kind of circles back together. Okay. So we find that families sometimes get stuck on this sitting portion. So what feels kind of effortless with hearing kids, like, oh, I don't know, we just sit down and read together. Sometimes families can feel like, but I don't know how to sit with them. Like, how do I sit where they can see me, where they can hear me best, all this stuff. And they just get a little stuck there. So I'm not going to like belabor this, but here are just some ways that you can position yourself and your child when you are reading with them. Um, this is applicable to any communication mode or all communication modes, a mix of communication modes, whether you're signing or cueing or using listening spoken language or a mix of those things. These things are all applicable. The main thing is to try to keep your face and the book in the child's view at all times. It's helpful for them to read your facial expressions. They can get tone and mood that way. If they are trying to lip read and slot things in, then seeing your faces is an important part of that. It also helps you with identifying their eye gaze. What are they looking at? What are they interested in? Are they ready to move on to the next page? That kind of stuff. So, um, there's a couple ways to do that. One thing I always say is that you can trap the child in the reading space by using something like a stroller or a high chair because otherwise, who knows where they'll go. But it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you are trying to keep yourself and the book in view of the child. That isn't always true. This third example here has the child sitting on the parent's lap, which is good for some reasons. One thing, it traps the child in the space. Also, you can put your mouth right up to like their assistive device or their better ear, that kind of thing. When you're signing, it allows for different kinds of signing. So instead of signing bear on your body behind them, you could sign it on their body in front. That kind of stuff holds attention and helps with interactions. So there's a couple different things. And again, like this may seem like, yeah, okay, you just sit and read. But some families get stuck. So that's why we're just going to run through it really quick. Okay. So the central idea here, which comes from research by David Schlepper in the 90s, is that when you are reading with your deafblind, or hard of hearing child, the goal is that they understand the story and what they're looking at. And it's not as important what the text says the first time you read it. Basically, the first time that you read a book is different than the second, third, fourth, fifth time you read the same book. And you're going to build as you go to reach something closer to the text. But in the beginning, the important thing is that the child is understanding what they're looking at. So to do this, that first reading, you don't have to pay attention to the words at all. We want to describe what's happening in the illustrations, in the story, without focusing too much on the words. We just want to get the story across and make sure that the child has the information they need to understand what they're looking at. So connect the English text to what you're reading, point out specific words as you say or sign them. You can work on identification by pointing to an illustration, having the child repeat after you if they're at that stage. We want to elaborate a lot. You really don't want to be constrained by the text. Just let whatever seems appropriate to you and your understanding of your child. So using illustrations to add themes to the story, elaborating on the background information, making what is implied explicit. So, for example, in like Goldilocks, she eats the porridge and then she's tired. And so she goes to sit in the chair. But the book is kind of like, eat porridge, go to chairs. And you might want to like add in information like, oh, she's ate. Oh, now she's tired, like blah, blah, blah. Adding in that information will help make sure that the child is understanding the structure of the story. Connect what you read to the child's life experiences, like, oh, do you eat oatmeal for breakfast? That kind of stuff. And avoiding linguistic simplification. So when I say that you want to make sure that they understand what they're looking at, that means that you want to understand what they're looking at, but it doesn't mean that you have to restrict what language you give them. So in this image here, we have a flower. Maybe the first time we're doing it, we talk about flowers. If my kid knows the word flower already, I can give them the word sunflower. So it doesn't mean that we're not giving them more complex information, more complex words. It just means that we're making sure that they have the information they need to understand what it is. If I give them the word sunflower when they don't know what a flower is, that's not going to be helpful. You want to follow the child's lead, so let them select the book, let them turn the pages or take turns, let them absorb the pictures and look at things before turning the page. Story sharing should be collaborative, so don't feel like you have to like run the show and control the interactions. You can use eye gaze again, so watch what they're looking at to know what they're interested in, when to turn the page, when they're ready for something new, that kind of stuff. We want to adjust our reading style to fit the story. We do this anyway with our hearing kids when we have like a big voice for Papa Bear, that kind of stuff. We want to keep doing that. We also want, if we're signing, we can adjust sign style to match that. Big signs for Papa Bear, little signs for Baby Bear, that kind of stuff. Facial expressions are a bit good for that. Um, Role shifting, changing tone, role playing to extend concepts. You can have your child follow along with actions in the story, like, oh, eating all up, oh, I'm eating all the porridge, and that kind of thing. That really helps to solidify not only what is happening, but also the connection between what is real and what is written. And finally, here we want to expect success. There's no reason that our deaf and hard of hearing kids can't become literate. So we want to expect them to become so. That makes a difference in how we read with them. All right, I know that was fast, so hopefully it made sense. But the main thing, that first time we're reading, it looks like that. We're giving all the information we want to have understanding as much as possible. And then you repeat it. You read the same book again and again and again. The only person getting sick of that book is you. Kids love to read the same book over and over. So do it. Read it as many times as they want. I know that there's like a worry of finding something more difficult or meeting a next challenge level. But the goal is to work on literacy practices, and repetition is the next level. That is part of development. Our DHH kids especially need to have things repeated. It lets them grasp onto concepts, sounds, words. So it's okay to read the same thing over and over. Repetition is good language input. So we've read it the first time. We've focused on making sure that the child knows what they're looking at and can identify what's happening, the broad strokes of the story. And as we read it again, we're going to get more and more close to what the actual text says. We're going to expand more and more. So that means we're going to add in dialogue and narration. We're going to provide the next level of label or detail. So sunflower versus flower, polar bear versus bear. We want to ask questions about what's happening. The good thing about having read it before is that the child may know what to expect. If you do a book that has like a repetitive motion, like, 3, 2, 1, blast off, the child anticipates the blast off. And so we'll be able to follow along with that with you. You can ask questions and let them answer. Even if your child isn't answering, it's important to ask those questions and then allow wait time. So be like, oh, what's going to happen next? Give them a few moments to think about it, even if they don't answer you and you end up answering yourself. Providing that turn taking of asking questions and waiting for an answer is a good way of just showing your child how conversation works. So it's a good thing to kind of build into the reading practice. Expand and elaborate on what's there in the book. So add motivations, emotions, dialogue that's not present in the text. Focus on repeated phrases. You can point out specific phrases as you read. As they get more familiar with the book, you read it more as it's written and you ask more complicated questions. So these images are from a book called Baby Loves the Five Senses Hearing. They're about how hearing works. It's a board book, so it's aimed at a young audience, but it gets kind of complex. And it has a page about hearing aids and implants. So when you start, you're like, oh, I see a girl, she has a hearing aid. Do you have a hearing aid? What color is it? That kind of stuff. And then as you read more and more, you can get into the details. So when you start, again, you're just making sure they understand what they're looking at. I'm looking at a hearing aid. I'm looking at a cochlear implant. But as you go, you can get closer to the idea, the concepts here that hearing aids make things louder and implants change the way you hear. Um, and just like for any kid, it's important to have the foundation, the background information to understand that. So you start somewhere and you build off of it. That scaffolding concept. Yeah, so here's an example of Goldilocks. So she's discovered in Baby Bear's bed, and Baby Bear says, someone's been sleeping in my bed, and she's still there. And that's kind of a phrase that we know. And as you read more and more through through the book. So, the first time, like, oh, she's sleeping. Oh, there's, uh-oh, surprise. That kind of thing. We're getting closer and closer to the text as we go until we end up somewhere that's similar to that kind of phrase that we might know that can be repeated. Um, Again, we talked about anticipating an answer. So we know that that's going to happen and she's still there. So you can help the child to anticipate that that is going to happen. You can say it together, that kind of thing. Really builds off of itself in the repetition. This is an example, obviously, of the Give a Mouse a Cookie book, which is a great example of explaining implicit motivations. So in this book, right, he gets a cookie, so he wants milk, so he wants this, so he wants this. And in the book, you're just going from one thing to the next, and we're implying that one thing causes him to want the next thing. So for our kids, we want to make sure that that first few times we're reading it, they're understanding why those things are happening. We're not just going in a laundry list of things, thing. We're talking about how they're connected. So he asks for a straw. Great. After he's finished, he asks for a napkin. Why does he ask for a napkin? Oh, you can point out, oh, he's got milk on his face. Oh, he's all dirty. He needs a napkin. And want to make sure that those connections are clear so that our child can follow that. So it's not just things are happening, it's a cause and effect, and that they can follow and understand. And again, you wouldn't need to do that as much as you keep going. Okay, so this will be really fast too. This is my graduate thesis. This is important to me. So if you do want to talk about representational literature, which is what we're going to talk about here, please reach out to me. But we're going to talk a little bit about this. Basically, kids need to see themselves represented in the books that they read and in the media they consume. They need to see that they're part of their community, that they're part of society, that they can be a valued and important member. If they don't see themselves in their stories in different roles and things, they put limits on what they think that they can accomplish. So we want to avoid that. Seeing themselves in media helps with identity, confidence, self-esteem, community. It can combat feelings of isolation. I know a lot of our kids are isolated because deafness is a low incidence disability. So that is something we can keep in mind here. That using books, picture books with our young kids is a great way of helping them feel part of a community, helping them feel less alone, and also introducing them to new and diverse people and concepts. This is a graphic that I made for my thesis. It's actually been updated since then, but of just some basic books that are positive or productive representational texts. So they're not like, oh, can you imagine what it would be like to be deaf? Because that's not going to help our kids. They're like stories that involve different aspects of deafness and different characters and perspectives. I'm happy to provide this to anyone. You can always reach out to me and I can give it to you as a PDF, or you can just look at it here. And I have a longer list, a spreadsheet of picture books and also of other age groups. So that's kind of my thing if there's anything that you need related to that. Okay, I also want to do this really quick, which is linguistic diversity. So we want your child to get consistent language input and to understand what they're reading. So that means it needs to be adjusted sometimes, especially if the family uses another language at home. So letter sounds are not the same in every language. Onomatopoeia, like cows say moo, is not the same in every language. So if you're reading a book and the cow says moo, but your family doesn't use that, like your family uses another primary language at home, and when you talk about cows, you use something else, then slot that in, replace it into the story. What's important is that the concept is coming through, the cow is making noise, and less important that the book that you're looking at says moo. I'm just giving you permission to ignore parts of books as you read them. Um, Also with linguistic diversity, music and songs, you can use rhyming, repetition, cultural traditions and experiences, repeated phrases, things like prayers or certain speeches that are used culturally within your family traditionally, are a great way of providing repetitive language input. Multilingual books are a good option too. Point out different words as you read them. And then conceptually, so this, this is the five little monkeys jumping on the bed. When they fall off, as they always do, it says mama called the doctor and the doctor said. If your family doesn't use the word mama to refer to, a mother, or they don't have a mother figure, then slot in a different word, slot in the word you use. Let's say you use mommy, then put in the word mommy. Because again, we want the child to understand the concept. This is the mother of the monkeys. She's calling the doctor. So the first few times you read that, slot in the words that you actually use. Let the child have a full understanding of what they're looking at. And then as you read it more and more, you can talk about like, oh, families use different words. Um, mama versus whatever. And that can come later. But again, in the beginning, we really just want them to understand what they're looking at so that they can build those connections and scaffold their language together. So do what you got to do. Also build routines around books, around having books, around including them and the repetition of them in your routine. That's an important part of just the reading process. Also is modeling reading behavior. So let your kids see you reading. That will help a lot too. Okay, I didn't set a timer, so I don't know how long it's been, but let me just close by saying that language and literacy are tied closely together, and they're both huge indicators of future success and healthy development. So we want to start working on our literacy skills as early as possible. We want to teach families, your family and your extended family and everyone to continue that work as you go and learn these different aspects of repetition as language input, as scaffolding off of each other and making sure that you're pre-teaching and that your child has the information they need to build off of it. Something I forgot to say earlier, excuse me, is that one of the great things about this style of reading where you start by labeling and identifying what you're looking at is that siblings can help with that. Younger siblings, older siblings, even if they don't have a lot of language themselves, they can help with that labeling process and be an active part of your reading instruction, which makes it more fun. It makes it more engaging, gives different kinds of language input, different kinds of turn taking. So that's another kind of benefit of this system. And again, just expect success. With the right supports, your kid can become literate and be, a reader and on grade level and all of that stuff. So it is important to get a start on it and to expect them to be able to be successful. I also want to remind you again to be conscientious and intentional about what you're reading with your kids. Seeing themselves as both normal and as special is vital to confidence and self-esteem and identity development. Our world is very diverse with ability, status, ethnicity, gender, sexuality. We can celebrate those differences and teach our kids through the literature that we provide to them to celebrate those things too. This is my contact information. My email is there and everything. And you are welcome to reach out to me for any reason, for questions or for more information on something or a source for something. I'm happy to provide that to you. And that's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Maddie, so much. That was so like so helpful, and especially with summer coming and parents are going to be home with their kids, like reading is so important, and just taking at least a few minutes a day to read a book and using your tips and tricks to help our DHH kiddos will be awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry it was so speedy, but if there's anything that anyone needs, they can always reach out to me for more information.
Yes. And we're actually making a list of books too for
Great.
representation. More kiddos cannot speak today, but I will definitely reach out to you and get that so our families in Utah can have. Um, but I just wanted to remind people this is on YouTube. Well, it will be on YouTube, and families can go back and look at it and get all the information they need. So,
Absolutely. That sounds great. We also do something called a Dear newsletter, which is Drop Everything and Read, which we do in December. And anyone can sign up for that. It's just an email newsletter, like every day for a week, and it will have different ASL storytelling videos, literacy resources, and book recommendations for different age groups. So it's just kind of a fun thing to do at the end of the year. So, follow us on Facebook, keep an eye out for that, and you can join in that as well.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Yay. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming.